You know, it does require a little bit more maintenance, not just to power up that attack, but also to get all of these cards into play. You mentioned, of course, that Haxorus, that Kyurem, another very scary attack, since a lot of these Dragapult decks, including Zach's, are not playing something like Shaman to protect the bench.
For sure. And interestingly enough, as we'll see, what used to be played in Slowking was the Xatu engine to attach those Psychic Energies and draw cards. However, with the release of Phantasmal Flames, now the deck has shifted to a more aggressive turbo build, utilizing Wondrous Patch to accelerate those Psychic Energies from the discard pile. And looking at the prize cards, we do see that one of Annihilate prize. That's a way to knock out those big EX Pokemon like the Dragapult. And the Technical Machine Devolution is prized, so you can't play for a Kyurem to knock out those Dracloaks and put 110 on the Dragapult and then devo that Dragapult later.
Yeah, another interesting non-inclusion in this deck. We see a lot of these lists, I mean, I guess it's hard to say a lot since this is not a super popular variant by any means, but one thing that, you know, has always struck my mind with this deck is the ability to use something like Regigigas a little bit easier, to use that attack, Jewel Breaker, you know, hit for 320 plus damage, take KOs onto these Terrestrial Pokemon. But Christopher is not playing that in his list, so it may be a little bit more difficult if these Dragapult EX can get set up into play to be able to take KOs later on once Phantom Dive starts being used.
Absolutely, and looking at Zach's side, 3 basic energies prize. He is playing 4, which is 1 extra than we typically see, only playing 2 Luminous, but that is going to make it really awkward for Zach to be able to attach to those Dracloaks, which could be under a lot of pressure from a potential Kyurem really early on.
Stage is set, Piper. We are ready to get into what is one of the more interesting Swiss matchups that we have seen in recent time for the tournament. It feels like everything is kind of becoming the, you know, the sort of standard, so to say, right? We're playing with the same decks, the same matchups. We've seen a lot of Dragapult versus Gardevoir last event, and, you know, that was kind of my expectation going in. Okay, you know, we'll cast another 4 Dragapult versus Gardevoir matchups, but we are really getting thrown for a curveball right away. I hope you all at home are ready to see what is hopefully a treat of a matchup between, you know, 2 players who are not super known, and more importantly, you know, big spotlight on Christopher. Can he step up to the stage, step up to the spotlight, and really put on a show with this deck featuring Slowking?
Yeah, absolutely. Now that we're at the end of the Phantasmal Flames format, we kind of see people getting a little tired of those normal decks and switching it up a little, playing Slowking, for example. So it'll be exciting to see if it can get through that early game of Dragapult Dusknoir using Itchy Pollen and setting up those Dusclopses, Dusknoirs for a big Phantom Dive. As with Slowking and Slowpokes, those are pretty fragile Pokemon, and Dragapult does really well against those typically.
There's a little bit of a jump scare on the camera here. We see you, Zach. We see you. No worries. And we are ready to get into things here. Swiss, round number 5 between Zach Elliott and Christopher KARO. As Christopher does go first and starts things off with the Kangaskhan, and immediately a pretty big sequencing decision is going to actually choose to play Nest Ball here before using that Run Errand ability.
Yeah, one of the things this signifies is Christopher with the Squawk ability in the deck may just be wanting to use that aggressively and save the Run Errand for later. However, in a lot of scenarios, it could be you already have all the Pokemon you want for your turn, so you don't want to Run Errand and draw into those Pokemon. But here, since getting the Squawk ability, we're probably going to see that Squawk and Seize, see 6 new cards, get 2 more with the Errand running, and really just set up.
So deck does get shuffled with Ultra Ball. 2 Pokemon found. It does also find the Academy at night, and we'll go ahead and preserve what appears to be, we'll see what this card discarded. So it looks like Cypher Maniac is going to be saved here from the top of the deck. We'll just draw into that with the Squawk and Seize, so finds that and a couple more cards. Does find Nest Ball and has yet to use that Mega Kangaskhan EX's ability just quite yet. So super solid start here for Christopher. He's going to have the Latias down. It's going to allow free pivot between these basic Pokemon thanks to that Skyliner ability. And with this Psychic Energy attachment already, Christopher could be threatening a huge Trifrost on the following turn if he can really get all those pieces into play. And more importantly, if the Stadium card also stays into play.
Absolutely. We see that Cypher Maniacs has really been doing a lot in these Mega Kangaskhan decks, especially in the Absol, as it just synergizes so well. It makes it so you almost have 2 quick searches, and that ability is restricted to 1 per turn. But now moving over to Zach's side, already has a Buddy Buddy Poffin, a great start, looking to get that Budew, another Dreepy or 2, and a Duskull to start making big threats. But Zach does have to be a little bit worried of that Trifrost knocking out all those Dreepies.
Yeah, I mean, it's already guaranteed here for Christopher in the hand. Cypher Maniac just grabs the pieces. So if you're Zach, you've got to wonder, is it worth going into something like Badoo to slow the pace down? That is usually the MO of this Dragapult deck, but it really will depend on how strong the hand is, because by getting Badoo down, you're also getting one less Dreepy into play, which could also just get completely wiped off the board with that Kyurem's attack.
What is interesting is Kyurem does force Christopher to discard all those energies from the Slowking, and without the Xatu engine that I mentioned earlier, only relying on the Wonders patches, another Itchy Pollen from Zach would prevent Christopher from attacking back-to-back. So by using an Itchy Pollen this turn, Christopher can't start to set up a second Slowpoke on the bench with a Wonders patch, and then Zach will eventually get a free turn in a couple turns.
Yeah, and this was interesting here. I was wondering if Zach was actually going to stagger benching these Dreepy in this spot, and only bench 2 here. And it actually does have a research, so look at this. It's actually going to preserve the Latias EX. You know, you can always just kind of put that into play, and I kind of wonder, you know, maybe if saving something like Pheasantipity for the following turn may have been just slightly a little bit better, since you're almost expecting, or okay, rather, to just put that into play so that in future turns you can pivot in and out of these Pokemon.
Yeah, and, well, I think we also could have benched that Latias that you mentioned, as Zach does have a ton of energies prized, so it's going to be pretty unlikely that you're going to be able to find one to retreat, and even if you do, you want to preserve those for later attachments when your Dreepies aren't under pressure. But here, getting a second Duskull, really trying to make threatening plays. I mean, if Christopher does go for the Trifrost next turn and Zach wants to, he could use a Curse Blast and potentially attack with Blood Moon or Saloon immediately. But here we see a huge jamming tower, getting rid of that Academy at Night, meaning Christopher now needs an extra piece, which, if he doesn't have it yet, won't be able to Cypher for it.
You know, would only be able to find 2 of those pieces, does not have that Kyurem in hand. We did also see one of them get discarded off of that Squawkin' Seize, so does do play the 2 copies of Kyurem. It is, you know, still a possibility. It is not in the prizes as well, so always got to keep note of what pieces are available here for Christopher. So we'll play this Lily's Determination, and with there being no Stadium in play and no Slowking, did not get item locked with Itchy Pollen, is still going to have to find just a couple of pieces here to make things worth. There is the Ultra Ball, does have Nest Ball as well, so could get down another Slowpoke. I think that will almost certainly be what we see. And now really just relying off the Run Errand ability, as I don't think we have an Academy at Night in the hand, and it looks like we do not.
Yeah, looks like with the Ultra Ball, playing the Ultra Ball first is interesting, because you could use the Run Errand first to try to draw into that Kyurem or that Slowking, then Ultra Ball for the other, and draw the Academy at Night. But Christopher, realizing that's just fairly low odds, settling with just getting a Slowking into play and thinning the deck to Run Errand, and just getting the board as set up as possible, presuming that Zach is going to Itchy Pollen on the next turn, which is pretty likely. It's unlikely that Dragapult Wisp for 2 turns, it feels.
Yeah, and it's also okay to not have to Trifrost this turn, right? You know, most of these Dragapult lists are not playing something like Rare Candy, so there's really not the threat of, you know, a Phantom Dive next turn, or even just putting Dragapult EX into play to protect it. So you're okay with your opponent evolving into Dracloak. If anything, it's just going to be more resources hitting the discard pile if a Trifrost is to be fired off on the following turn.
Absolutely, and a lot of Poltnor lists lately have been going down to 2 Night Stretchers, so a Trifrost could just completely wipe Zach's board, and it's going to be super hard to build it back up, since, as you mentioned, Zach could have staggered the benching of the Dreepies, only going for like 2 Dracloaks at first, so then you can start to set up 2 more Dreepies later. But with 3 on board, a Trifrost could be really bad for him.
First Recon Directive does find that Luminous Energy. Like you mentioned, with there being 3 energy in the prize cards, very precious resources here, and is even considering just having to retreat this energy off. We'll see the Ultra Ball plus the attachment to the active. Night Stretcher also hitting the discard pile. This is just going to be a lot of resources at the disposal gone if Christopher can find that Trifrost attack on the following turn.
Yeah, 1 Night Stretcher discarded, and that 4th Dreepy is prized. Along with all his energies, it's going to be really difficult for Zach to be able to get an attack off. And Christopher just needs a Cypher Maniacs, an Academy at Night, and a Kyurem. All these ways just to Trifrost and decimate Zach's board.
Will be the Lily's Determination played, so it's going to just go ahead and shuffle back in these players. You have to take prize cards, so we'll get those bonus 2 cards off of this powerful staple supporter we'll be seeing for a while in the Pokemon TCG standard format. 8 cards used, yet to use one of these Recon Directives, and yeah, looking at this list, there is no Rare Candy. Kind of wondering, you know, initially by, you know, not evolving this active, if it's ever worth, you know, leaving energy either or. It doesn't really matter if you're going to retreat off either way, but I guess you do give yourself that potential. There is that 3rd Dracloak coming into play, but yeah, it's really just still opening the doors prime wide open for a Trifrost to just absolutely decimate Zach's board on this following turn.
Yeah, and you have to think with Christopher playing 4 Academy at Night and 4 Cypher Maniacs, it's pretty easy for him to get it. He's been building up such a big hand with the Lilies last turn, the errand running, or run errand, and another run errand on the next turn. Pretty likely that he's going to have it, so we'll see what Zach's going to be able to do to restabilize after the Trifrost.
Yeah, and even if you Itchy Pollen here, you're discarding this Luminous Energy. In the best case scenario, you've got to find your 1 copy of Neo Upper if you want to attack on the following turn.
Yeah.
Zach's still going to just prepare for the worst case scenario, getting 2 Dusclops into play. Does have that 1 copy of Blood Moon Ursaluna, but you know, even as a way to respond, it's just not a great attacking Pokemon into this 1 prizer that is Slowking.
For sure, but I mean, with the 2 Dusclopses, if Christopher opts to just knock out the triple Dracloak, Zach could have a way where he's using 2 Dusknors on the turn and the Blood Moon with an Iono to 1 and just getting rid of all these Slowpokes and Slowkings from Christopher's board.
And look at that, top deck's the Academy of Night, so even more ease to pull off this attack. Can grab the Kyurem, and even looking at something like the Power Glass, a way to, like you mentioned, with those energies being forced to be discarded with the Trifrost attack, you can kind of start to reestablish a built-in attack and regeneration thanks to that tool card.
Absolutely, and Christopher having that Lana's 8 in the deck means that even if both Kyurems hit the discard pile and Zach Itchy Pollens, he's still going to be able to pressure another Trifrost, and if Christopher takes 3 prizes with Trifrost this turn and 3 prizes with a Trifrost next turn, he just wins the game.
Well, Slowking is coming in with an absolute bang.
Yeah.
Piper. We're going to see the Kyurem get copied thanks to that Seek Inspiration and just takes down triple Dracloak, all hitting the discard pile. And Christopher is going to take a 3 prize card lead and shut Phantom Dive off from potentially ever happening in this first game.
Yeah, Zach now has no Pokemon to attack with besides Blood Moon or Ursaluna, and no draw either. I mean, Pheasantipity hit the discard pile earlier, now 3 Dracloaks, and we're already down a Night Stretcher. I don't think Zach's going to be able to find the pieces necessary, but with 2 Dusclopses, Dragapult Dusknor, it feels like it always has a win condition. So we'll see if it's enough.
Yeah, definitely some liabilities on the board to look at. That Mega Kangaskhan EX can give up 3 prize cards. Squawkabilly EX and Latios, both easy prize cards to be taken from that Blood Moon Ursaluna, so don't count him out just yet. However, this hand is really just not looking strong enough, it feels like, to respond. It's going to be potentially a Hilda? Are we going to see that as the supporter? I don't think we'll see Dusknor get an attack. Don't tell me we're seeing that world.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe Zach could get like a Blood Moon knockout on the Kangaskhan with an Iono and get all the draw off Christopher's board, but with a Hilda, it's just not going to be doing enough. I mean, Christopher's been building this hand up turn after turn, Lilies, a bunch of run errands, and Zach is using this Hilda isn't going to present any meaningful threat to Christopher.
Yeah, even just considering not grabbing the Neo Upper Energy out, it's just going to be a basic Fire Energy instead. So you have to ask yourself, you know, you get Dusknor into play, it's not going to be necessarily threatened on the following turn, but on the adverse, what are you as a player threatening here with this play? And it feels like, you know, the Dusknor grab, while it is threatening in a sense, Curse Blast is a strong ability, it's really not doing much for you when it comes to trying to close out this first game.
Yeah, we do have a Jamming Tower, but that's just getting rid of that Academy at Night. There's still 2 more left in Christopher's deck, and Zach using his... He does play 3 Jamming Tower, but still going to be losing that Stadium War eventually. And as I keep mentioning, Christopher has just been building up this hand, having all these options available. Maybe another Cypher Maniacs, another Lilies, just so many options since Zach hasn't been able to play those Ionos, one of those big parts of the Dragapult Dusknor deck.
And wow, he's actually just going to go ahead and take the knockout, make a 1-for-1 trade.
Yeah.
And does find Lily's Determination. Can't play that, though, this turn. We'll see the Kangaskhan get promoted.
Yeah, I mean...
Prize cards taken for both players, and now Christopher down to just 2 prize cards. There's going to be an Itchy Pollen, but if Christopher can somehow play something like the Lana's 8 and the Stadium card, that would be the end of the game here.
Yeah.
However, it looks like the pieces just aren't in the cards for this turn, but, you know, Christopher's got all but time in this position.
Absolutely, just using Lilies here, not having the greatest hand, just going for a reset, getting 6 new cards, and having that run errand to get 2 more, looking for some Slowkings, and that Lana's 8 eventually to use a Trifrost, but even if you don't use Trifrost, you can use like basically any attack to knock out this Budu, and then there's just Dusclops on the board that, when Christopher's at 1 prize, can't even use Curse Blast.
It could even just tackle this turn and take it down without having to copy a Pokemon. There's already that Psychic Energy onto the Slowpoke on the bench. Does find Slowking, but I would like to see him hold off from attacking here if he can find that energy card. Finds the Academy at Night, but no energy. However, with that Lana's aid for next turn, assuming Christopher can keep this hand, he is threatening game on the following turn with another Trifrost copy.
Absolutely. And with the stadium bump on the jamming tower, can even prep his deck for an Iono if Zach's able to draw one.
Yeah, and I think it's just debating if there's a world where you can promote Slow King at the end of the turn to get the additional energy off Power Glass. Is just going to preserve it on the bench. Does pass the turn over, and a nice top deck there with the Ultra Ball means that if Zach does want to now, with the combination of Counter Catcher, could actually start to chase down either these two prize Pokemon on the bench or that Slow King with the Blood Moon or Saluna.
Yeah, but that Blood Moon or Saluna can't attack consecutive turns, and with the 4th 3P prize, 3 in the discard, and a Night Stretcher in the discard, Zach just isn't going to be able to threaten a Dragapult anytime soon, and it's going to give Christopher just so much time, and can potentially use that Haxorus to just one-shot the Blood Moon Ursaluna.
Yeah, bring down the axe, a throwback to an international championship winning card in that Reggie Drago deck. It's making an appearance back in this Slowpoke deck, or Slow King deck rather. Will still be the Blood Moon Ursaluna, and getting rid of that energy card as well. Just more resources hitting the discard pile. It seems like it's bear or bust here for Zach in this game.
Absolutely, and still looking for that last Night Stretcher to try to get the Dreepy, get the Cloak, because there's still no draw on Zach's board. Christopher didn't take a knockout last turn, so even though the Pheasantipity's in the discard, it wouldn't be active anyway.
So excuse me, it's actually not the bring down the axe, it's the Axe Blast Haxorus in this list. So 2 different Haxorus with the one-shotting capability here, knocking out any basic Pokemon if it comes into play. We'll see this Hawlucha come into play, speaking of. We'll go ahead and ping this Latios for a non-existent Phantom Dive probably this game, setting it up for math, as well as putting a damage counter onto the Slowpoke. So, you know, who knows down the line, maybe could be some world where that 10 matters, and it will be the counter catcher onto Slow King. So, not going after prize cards this game, really just trying to take care of all the threatening attackers, and an Iono will disrupt the hand, force Christopher down to just 2 cards as Zach will knock out this attacking threat and force Christopher to have to put something together with this limited draw he has available.
Yeah, and this is really what I mean when, like, Poltnor always has a win condition. I mean, you just have this ability to pick the weaknesses in your opponent's board and keep Ionoing, pressuring their hand size, and eventually they get to a point where they just don't have what they need to make a threatening play, and you get to overwhelm them. But usually you have some Dracloaks on the board when you get to that point, and a threatening Phantom Dive, not Blood Moon over and over and over again, which you can't do in consecutive turns.
So here comes Blood Moon up into the active spot. Thanks to that seasoned skill ability, taking the knockout, Kangaskhan immediately promoted as a Fire Energy is drawn. What is the top deck here for Christopher? Does find the Psychic Patch, or the Wondrous Patch, excuse me. And there is a Cypher Maniac from the top of the deck, so can sort of use this to preemptively prepare cards on top, and will be the choice. Have to think about what the attack choice for Zach is going to be on the following turn, and if Christopher's got to be careful of potentially pivoting back and forth into something like Badoo on the following turn, thanks to that Latios' Skyliner ability.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing, I don't know if Christopher has enough Cypher Maniacs left, but one of my favorite plays, it looks like there's one more in the deck, is just using Cypher Maniacs to get a Cypher Maniacs for the next turn, and plus 1 more card that you want, and then you kind of have 3 cards that you have access to on the next turn. And with this Academy on at night, could prep for another Iono from Zach's side, having 3 cards on the top of the deck to progress his board, and with a Wondrous Patch in hand, that could be a great card to add on top of the deck.
So we'll just go ahead and think about those 2 cards, prepping it onto the top. There is the Wondrous Patch. So we'll go on to the Slowpoke with 10 onto it, and does decide to actually split the energies up. So it technically is 1 more piece that's needed, but with Alana's aid, it would still grab you those exact 3 cards you need. So a little bit of a smart heads-up play here from Christopher. Just wants to cover most of his bases. You really don't know what crazy cards your opponent could have in their list. It will be the Night Stretcher number 2 being played, so there is still 1 more, or that is only the actual second Night Stretcher. So it looks like Zach only playing 2 in this deck, and now means that with this Dreepy being prized, we are not going to see a Phantom Dive this game, most likely.
Yeah, we see Zach getting this Dusknoir here, and I think what he's playing for is counter-catching one of these Slowpokes and retreating. Oh, going to Curse Blast now. I was thinking that he could bench the Latios, retreat into the Dusknoir, use Curse Blast, and reset the Blood Moon, but just taking a prize here. Takes the Dreepy, but it may just be too little too late.
The energy comes down, does have Counter Catcher, but there is no way to reset this Blood Moon's attack. I kind of wonder if, you know, you play the Counter Catcher first, evolved, and then Iono'd. Sure, it's the opposite effect, but yeah, like you mentioned, if you find that Latios, you could reset that attack and prevent a Slow King attack on the following turn, and potentially later on in the game as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think Christopher would be down to no Slowpokes left in deck. I think
Wow.
2 have been knocked out already, and then 2 are in play. So he'd have to find those recovery cards with 2 Night Stretcher and the Lana's Aid. But
Yeah, and we're playing counter catcher here, but this Blood Moon cannot attack, so
Yeah.
this is kind of not really doing anything. You do shut off the Kangaskhan
Yep.
at minimum from using Run Errands, so take that back slightly, but still, it doesn't feel like it's enough in this spot. Zach is going to take a look at the discard pile, see what attackers
Yep.
are down. Like you mentioned, double Kyurem in the discard pile. Haven't seen anything like the Haxorus just yet. Does he also find that third copy of Jamming Tower? You know, Christopher was keen to play that Stadium down right away because it is sort of the norm for this Dragapult deck to only be playing 2 of those Stadium cards.
yeah, we've seen a bit of an influx in 3 lately, just with Mega Absol becoming more popular, shutting down the Turbo Energize, and Technical Machine Evolution getting a bit more popular in Gardevoir. So shutting that down as well just really slows down those decks.
We'll be hitting the board there, and Pheasantipity can be used thanks to Dusknoir taking a KO. Does find the Secret Box. Okay, is that enough here? Secret Box away the Jet Energy, but does find the Lana's Aid as well. I have to wonder here for Christopher, are you okay maybe taking things just a little bit slower this turn? And it seems like that might be the case. But actually, with this Run Errand, there may be enough cards to make this happen. Let's see.
And with the Jet Energy, can move the Slowking up to the active. Secret Box and Lana's Aid, if the 4th Academy at Night is in the deck, which I believe it is, should be enough to win the game this turn.
So let's see Christopher sequence through everything here. Secret Box will get rid of that 1 Jet Energy, keeping the other and the Lana's Aid in the hand. And assuming there is that Academy at Night, that's actually going to be the only pieces that are needed here to win this game. Academy at Night will bump the Jamming Tower, meaning that a card can be put onto the top of the deck, and we'll see how he wants to style out here. It looks like it may be just the Kyurem styling out once more. So this is all that Christopher needs, just Trifrost and a Dream, using the Lana's Aid to bring back those Pokemon, and thanks to Academy at Night, making sure that top card is always an ideal attacker, and Christopher, riding off the back of the absolute ice monster that is Kyurem, will take this first game.
Absolutely, and while this game has taken such a long time, Christopher is only going to have used 2 attacks to win the game, and imagine if he just draws a little better next game. 2 Trifrost can just end the game so quickly against these stage 2 decks.
And there it is, putting it out in style. Trifrost, 3 prize cards taken twice in the game, and thanks to Dusknoir as well, more than enough to close things out. Let's go Slowking. I know there's some fans out there at home that are happy to see this rogue deck take a victory on the stream.
Absolutely, and the build with Squawkabilly and Kangaskhan is really interesting. I feel like Squawkabilly is such a powerful card, and it's really fallen out of the meta recently. So it's good to see people using it before it rotates out. I mean, the Professor's Research-like effect, just so powerful at setting up, and especially when you start the Mega Kangaskhan, you're just discarding your hand and drawing 8 cards when you're not supposed to be able to play support on your first turn, and you're doing something better than Professor's Research.
Yeah, and plenty of bench space now that you don't need something like the Xatu that was played with this deck before the Wondrous patch was introduced. Means that you have the space to play a lot of these supporting Pokemon and keep plenty of space to make sure that your Slowpokes and Slowking are healthy and ready to go. So, you know, Christopher pretty much dominated that first game. Zach was not able to put off any Phantom Dives, and I think that has to be the one thing to touch on going into the second game. If Zach can't counter Trifrost, which he really can't, right? There's no Shaman. You know, you can play Stadiums down to annoy, but that's really the most you can do. If that's the case, is there an argument for trying to stagger these Dreepies a little bit more, you know, intentionally, only benching 2 at a time, for example, so that when a Trifrost comes down, you can Iono and then play down another pair to at least make it so that you can have some Recon Directive assistance in the following turns?
Yeah, I think that's a good approach. I think another interesting approach that's a little unintuitive is choosing to go first, which Zach chooses to do because you get to bench these Dreepies, immediately evolve into Dracloaks on the next turn, and then Ichipollen on your second turn. So Christopher isn't able to get a turn 2 Kyurem under Ichipollen, which he saw he wasn't able to last game, getting a turn 3 Trifrost. Then you're able to get into those Dragapults in time before your board just gets completely wiped.
The amount of supporter cards and the prize cards here for Zach could definitely be a little bit detrimental in terms of setting up, but does have the Buddy Puffin and an Ultra Ball this turn. It's also going to preemptively play that. You know, you never know if this deck has something like a Badoo as a first attack. It is always a potential. Don't think we saw Christopher show it. He is playing the 1 copy, so it is in the deck for him. So smart play here from Zach, a bit heads up, is going to go ahead and yet again approach this game with the 3 Dreepies in mind, all hitting the bench, and does have a solid follow-up for next turn, the Lily's Determination and a Dracloak already in the hand.
Yeah, it is a little scary discarding that Iono because there are 2 prize, so now you have 1 Iono left if you ever want to disrupt Christopher. And with the Mega Kangaskhan, the hand just keeps growing and growing if you give him Pheasantipity. But now Christopher is showing the Haxorus, and it looks like Zach is going to read it.
Yeah, it's time to read, class. Gotta take a look and make sure we understand what that card does. It is only basic Pokemon that are knocked out from that effect, so really only comes into play on something like the Blood Moon early on. Christopher's actually going to get the bad news here that one of Squawkabilly is in the prize cards for him. So this Ultra Ball really means that there's not going to be much going on this turn. Is actually going to have to, it looks like, preemptively stack the deck for the following turn with Cypher Maniac, but your options are just going to be so limited, and it looks like pretty much just grabbing a Lily's Determination for next turn, accepting that none of these item cards are going to be able to be played. Yeah,
it always feels bad ciphering a Lily's on top because you're only getting 1 card of value effectively since you're immediately shuffling that deck. And, I mean, Christopher just needed that hand reset from the Squawkabilly and just didn't get it. I mean, we could have seen Squawkabilly for the 2 Cypher cards, but yep, now onto Zach going with that Dracloak evolution, and Lily's looking for a couple more Dracloaks because Christopher has no energies in play, which means with this Itchy Pollen, there's going to be no Trifrost next turn. So just a complete flip of the script from last game, Zach just dominating Christopher's board in this game.
Yeah, and just getting Dragapult into play is just such an advantage already when your opponent just has so many more limited options to take out that 320 HP beast of a Pokemon EX. So there is second Dracloak coming into play and does already have the energy card as well. So big check marks already being hit here for Zach on this turn, and we've yet to see Recon Directive be used either.
Yep, benching that Duskull, having a Dusclops in hand for next turn means we could see a board wipe potentially. And an Ultra Ball in hand means that third Dracloak will probably hit the board this turn if it's not drawn off these Recons. And Zach's board is just, it's the best you can ask for from Poltnor, especially going first, not even using a supporter on that first turn.
Yeah, just when you open Buddy Poffin, it's just such a solid time, especially when you've got supporters and Recon Directives to back yourself up. The choice will now be what this last bench spot wants to be. Ultra Ball will be played for that Dracloak, so we'll get to see a little bit more information from the deck before we have to make that decision. For now, though, just deciding what this discard is going to be. And I was wondering, Piper, if that second Duskull was going to come down in this spot. It actually would have been a pretty solid opportunity if we could see a powerful Phantom Dive on the following turn.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely could make a board wipe more possible. And with a Night Stretcher prize from Zach, it is a little weird discarding those basic Pokemon. Like, just makes everything a little awkward, especially when you're discarding the Duskulls and Dusclopses when using Curse Blast. But at this point, the board for Christopher is so weak. You're Itchy Pawing again, and or for the first time, I guess, since you went first, but you're threatening that Phantom Dive next turn, and Christopher's board is just not strong enough. Going for Lilies for 8, but without items, you just have to draw into those Pokemon. No Kangaskhan yet to draw. I mean, one's prized, so you have to find your one of Kangaskhan in deck.
Yeah, and no Latios either to be able to pivot out, so this is going to be a big 8 cards here for Christopher. Items shut off, options are dwindling. Really needs to find a way to first avoid getting board wiped, and wow, there is nothing here. Zach is going to be able to threaten game on this following turn. You can evolve up both of these Pokemon, but especially if there's a counter catcher as well, because of that 10 damage from Itchy Pollen, you're actually going to be threatening a game with just a single Dusclops this turn.
Yep, Zach either needs a counter catcher here or the Hawlucha to Curse Blast one of these Slowkings and make sure it has an extra 10 damage to get to 60 damage, then use Phantom Dive and just knock out both of them. And Zach already has the energy, finds an Ultra Ball.
And that's game, has everything in hand. The Dusclops and Hawlucha and Counter Catcher plus Fire and Ultra Ball means that as long as Zach sequences this correct, it's all over. So we'll go through the pieces here. Ultra Ball for Dragapult EX. The Fire Energy allows Phantom Dive to be used, and then using this Cursed Blast and then Counter Catcher, since you're giving your opponent a prize card, means that Phantom Dive is going to wipe out both of these Pokemon and allow Zach to take us to a third game. What an absolutely strong start, even just styling with the boss's orders. Zach showing that when Dragapult EX gets into play and when Itchy Pollen is used, there's no more games and no more playing around for Dragapult EX.
Yeah, this is such an interesting matchup. I mean, game 1, we just saw the Slowking wipe Zach's board with the Trifrost, and then game 2, we see Zach wipe the Slowking's board with Phantom Dive. I mean, these two decks, they look very different. I mean, you have the Kangaskhan's, Wonders Patch, Squawkabilly kind of turbo versus the Budew, Dracloak, methodical setup, but they're kind of playing for the same goal of just wiping your opponent's board of all those threats.
we saw how big of an advantage it was to go first in this matchup. I'm very curious to see, with the ball in Slowking's court, so to say, going first, if that will be the decision maker, the deciding factor in this third game. Piper, we've got plenty of time left on the clock. Christopher is going first. If you're Zach, you're feeling a bit better now that you brought this to a game 3.
Yeah.
But are you still sort of, you know, shivering in your boots a little bit now that you've got to go second up against this Slowking deck?
Yeah, I mean, you are playing a Badu deck, and Zach is playing 3 Badu, so has really high odds of starting it, and that can just win so many games, it feels. I mean, think of like the Mega Absol deck, so reliant on Trolley. If they just get their item shut off, they're kind of out of it. And we saw last game, Christopher didn't have items and also got shut down, so only having 1 turn of items with no supporter could mean that Zach is able to win really quickly by just shutting out the items and Christopher not having a board. And the interesting thing, though, is if Poltnor goes first and doesn't have as strong of a start as Zach did last game, it can also kind of fall behind a little quickly.
Zach also going to get some mulligan cards, very crucial in these opening turns to not only leave a lasting impression with that Itchy Pollen, but also build up your board to, like you said, build towards Dragapult EX. See if you can stabilize through the early turns of this important matchup. So here we go, and big start there for Christopher. It's going to be the Kangaskhan start. Super solid, and it's got some Ultra Balls to play with as well. Discarding that Psychic Energy, does have to get rid of the Kyurem, but getting that Psychic Energy super important if he can draw into one of those Wondrous Patch on this first turn.
Absolutely, and already eyeing up that Squawkabilly. I mean, we saw it prized last game, and that was just such a big impact, and already just immediately getting it. Just to reset that hand, start prepping for the next few turns, and going with that second Ultra Ball, looking for the Slowpoke. Just trying to get energies in play, prep yourself for the likely Itchy Pollen, and have as threatening of a turn as possible, maybe even getting that turn 2 Trifrost.
It had to make an interesting decision there on which last card to keep in hand. Either the Latias EX or the Academy of Night. Both cards super solid, but having information now that Zach does play 3 copies of that stadium, it's something you've really got to consider maybe needing to keep in that spot because of how important this Stadium War is in this matchup.
Yeah, something interesting Christopher could have done was use the Academy at Night to put the Ultra Ball on top and then use Squawkabilly, so he could have kept all those cards and then Ultra Balled after, but then you're also gambling a bit that you don't draw like 5 really good cards that you don't want to discard off there, but you still have to run Aaron, so it's kind of just an interesting sequencing decision if you want to play that Ultra Ball now or save it for a bit later.
No energy card yet, though. This would be a big find if Christopher can. And no, does not find an energy card, using the Ultra Ball in hopes of finding a Wondrous Patch, discarding that Psychic Energy, and missing that now means that Christopher is going to be put into a lot of pressure on this following turn under item lock to find one of those energy cards if he wants to threaten an attack because of Badu shutting down that Wondrous Patch from being played.
Yeah, with a Kyurem in the discard and no energies in play, and Zach is just going to prioritize this Badu, try to make it as hard as possible for Christopher to get off that Trifrost so Zach can evolve up into those Dracloaks, evolve up into Dragapult, and start to use Phantom Dive, because it feels like this matchup kind of comes down to, does the Dragapult get to use Phantom Dive from what we've seen?
Does start that Duskull. It will be a little bit more annoying to move out of the active spot, requiring either that Latias' Skyliner ability or an energy card to retreat off, and immediately we see the buddy friend Badu coming down into play thanks to Ultra Ball, and this is step number 1, Badu down into play. Number 2 will be how strong is the rest of the hand in combination with something like setup, and I'm not sure there's a supporter card in hand. No, just a single Dracloak for next turn. Zach not having a huge start here, and it looks like potentially we're going to see Badu come back into play and potentially put on even more pressure, and this sequencing choice here could have actually committed the energy card for turn and is now going to be taking a little bit of a risk playing this Lily now instead of attaching the energy card before, just to optimize a bit of this draw after using that supporter card.
Yeah, it's like you don't want to draw those cards and then Lilies them back into the deck, and using the Jet Energy, saving the Jet Energy is also good for just being able to move back into the Kangaskhan and draw on turns where you may not be able to attack, especially if you're getting Itchy Pond after discarding those energies. But looking at these 8 cards, there's no energies yet. Gonna use Run Errand and look for one, and I didn't see one there. Just 2 more trainers.
Yeah, that was the risk, right? Drawing into non-energies means you're not able to threaten much on this turn. And yeah, while you are slowing things down with this Badu, it means that Dracloak is essentially safe this turn, meaning Dragapult can get into play. And that's a huge milestone that Zach is gonna pretty much be able to guarantee in this spot, but the rest of the hand is just doing absolutely nothing. Can't even play the Buddy Poffins that are in hand from the top deck and that Recon Directive.
Yeah, I will say Christopher does have the Annihilate in deck this time, so he will be able to deal with the Dragapult. And Zach's board is just really weak, only having that Dracloak. I mean, Christopher going for this Budew, it was a little risky not getting that energy in play, but the Budew, the Itchy Pollen is just shutting down Zach so much.
Yeah, we are going to see the Cypher Maniac be played, but the big question is also going to be, can we draw onto these cards and Itchy Pollen on the same turn? And I'm not sure we can. But we've at least got to get an energy card down at the Slowking this turn. That's got to be the bare minimum at least.
Absolutely. It looks like Christopher got a Lily's Determination and a Psychic Energy. Probably going to retreat into Kangaskhan, run Aaron, draw 2 of those, but that means there's not going to be an Itchy Pollen this turn? Or maybe just using Itchy Pollen here, not even getting an energy. I mean, Zach's got to be feeling good. No Trifrost set. Top next to Lily's Determination. I mean, that's 8 new cards. Has a Recon right now. Wants to use the Recon first so he can evolve into that Dragapult and then use the Lilies, because you don't want to take the risk of not drawing into a Dragapult in over a couple turns, and then that Dracloak getting Trifrosted.
Yeah, and there is still the risk now, if you do decide to Phantom Dive, of Slowking being able to attack thanks to the Wanderer's patch, but I mean, are you even threatened this turn to do much? I mean, the Budew is shutting off your counter catcher from being played, but is going to just assess and see what these 8 cards bring off the Lily's Determination. Are there more Dreamies to put into play? Can you find Dusclops and Dusknoir? Those are going to be key pieces to see, as well as Boss's Orders potentially being able to start to pick off some of these Pokemon on the bench. It looks like none of those pieces actually found. Does find an energy card, though. That means Phantom Dive could be used in the upcoming turns. But with your opponent just stacking the deck and passing, do you feel confident enough to throw out a Phantom Dive this turn with your opponent just having so many resources in their hand? Even though they didn't play cards last turn, they could be sitting on powerful item cards instead. Yeah,
I would expect to just see an Itchy Pollen here, and Zach goes with that. I mean, using a Phantom Dive here, you're just knocking out this Budew and putting some damage on the bench. That's such low value from a Phantom Dive. You really want to be knocking out those key Pokemon like the Slowking Slowpokes. But Christopher putting the Lilies on top of the deck instead of Psychic Energy last turn now just is shuffling the deck, drawing 8, trying to find an energy again, but doesn't get to use Kangaskhan this turn again.
Could have just kept the energy and then maybe the Lily for the following turn. Instead is kind of just running in circles, right? All those items that weren't able to be played, you shuffle them back into the deck and just give yourself a chance to draw them yet again. So here we go, 8 cards and
no
energy again here. Is going to be able to take a knockout with this Itchy Pollen, so winning the Budew war back and forth. But now Zach here, if he can re-establish a Budew this turn and take a KO with Itchy Pollen, would be in an absolutely incredible spot. It's going to be hard without Night Stretcher, though. It's going to have to find just that one copy without a way to search it. Oh, it has it in the hand. Wow, look at that. Huge find here for Zach, and even has the extra energy to retreat off. Budew coming in clutch here in this mirror match of Budew. Budew on Budew power.
Yeah, I wonder if Zach had the Budew last turn or top decked it, because we could have benched it and then not had to discard this energy from the Dragapult, or maybe attach to a Dreepy if we find one off of a supporter. And yeah, here's a Lilies for 8. Still looking for more of those basic Pokemon. Can't play Buddy Poffin though with under the Itchy Pollen. But yeah, no energies means this Itchy Pollen knocking out the Budew means that Christopher, if he wants to continue item locking, has to find his one of Lana's Aid, or just is giving all the tempo to Zach. I mean, giving Zach items with this board doesn't feel good for Christopher. I mean, 2 Duskull now, and a Dreepy with a Dracloak in the hand for the next turn.
Yeah, huge finds, especially under item lock, not being able to play any of those Buddy Poffins. And here we go. Budew comes in, takes the KO with Itchy Pollen. It can disrupt and it can take prizes. This Budew card, it really does everything here, Piper.
Yeah, and we do see an enhanced hammer from Christopher, usually for those missed energies when you're using those knockout effects, but it could be really relevant against the Dragapult since you can get rid of those luminous energies, the Neo Upper, but obviously under item lock can't use that now.
So we'll finally be able to guarantee an energy attachment here thanks to the Cypher Maniac, but the question in this third game, Piper, now becomes, is it just too little too late? Your opponent's going to have access to item cards, potentially Recon Directive, and if they can find a combination of Hawlucha plus Dusclops, they would be able to just wipe your entire board of all attacking threats. That's not going to be the case now thanks to that third Slowpoke being benched.
Yeah, I mean, Zach discarded the Hawlucha really early, so that will come at the cost of a Night Stretcher, but clearing your board of these Dusclopses, using them immediately, actually feels pretty good because they're going to get knocked out pretty quickly from Trifrost. But Christopher didn't have an energy?
Did he not attach?
Chose not to attach? I guess just predicting that Zach would countercatcher or boss the energy, and just deciding to save it seems a little risky in case Zach has like some combination of using his Dusclops first and Ionoing you to like 4 or 3.
Yeah, but all this really does is just give Zach an extra turn to thin through the deck with the Recon Directive. And while you are risking your energy getting cleared off, you would get item cards in return. So we've really got to think about that decision here for Christopher. And more importantly, if Zach decides to capitalize on this and just take another turn off with Itchy Pollen. Not sure about this stadium drop, though. You really want to be using that to bump the academies at night, but at least does shut off something like Power Glass potentially coming into effect on the following turns.
Yeah, also kind of talking on not attaching the energy. I mean, this Kangaskhan inactive is worth 3 prizes, and you don't really see Slowkings playing like Turo or Penny, so Zach could just Phantom Dive this Kangaskhan and set it up to take 3 prizes on it later in the game. Maybe set up the Squawk ability to get, with 3 damage, to get Cursed Blast with Dusknoir for 2 prizes, and those are Zach's last 5 prizes. I mean, that's one of the downsides of not playing the Xatu build is you have all these liabilities in play. So if your opponent is able to get set up, they have a lot of avenues to win the game.
Yeah, and Neo Upper has not been played yet, so that's really going to be the question here. I mean, Zach is doing a lot this turn. He's putting these Pokemon into play. He just used the Recon Directive. He disrupted the hand, and yeah, he's going to try and take advantage of just this 3-prize Pokemon being able to take damage this turn. So will be a Phantom Dive into this active Kangaskhan. It will go down to just 90 HP remaining, so getting close to being able to be KO'd on the bench thanks to Phantom Dive. We'll have to now see where these 6 damage counters go. I've got to imagine it may be onto some combination of these EX Pokemon, and it is. Yeah,
prepping that Latias to get knocked out from a Phantom Dive. Having 5 damage on the Squawk ability gives you some math of like using 2 Dusclopses and then another Phantom Dive to put, or I guess you only need 1 Dusclops, sorry. It's at 50, yeah. 1 Dusclops and then the Phantom Dive, 6 damage to the bench will knock it out. So a lot of good math here. I mean, what does Christopher do? Annihilate knocks out this Dragapult, but there's just so many threats on Zach's board. I mean,
yeah, using the Jet Energy right away, and it's just going to be the Motivate for 20, and I mean, this is just game on board here for Zach. Can just draw for turn, pop the Dusclops on the bench, and Zach is going to take 5 prize cards. Christopher has just handed him the game. Zach Elliott is going to advance to 5-0 with Dragapult, dethroning the king in Slowking.
Yeah, I mean, we really just saw Dragapult. It looks, in the first game, we just saw those Trifrosts really decimate their board, but I mean, through the power of Budu and slowly getting those Dragapults into play, I mean, once the Dragapults were into play, it just felt so hard for the Slowking to come back.
Yeah, it's really Trifrost or bust in this matchup. We saw how important that was. And, of course,